So in the last session, we learned about how to create a virtual machine. And while creating a virtual machine, we went through a lot of options and we discussed in detail, um, you know, that is related to the availability set, availability zone, or, what are the best practices in terms of naming standards and various things we discussed while creating the virtual machine. And today, let us assume that the virtual machines are created and it's handed over to you and you are part of the Azure operations team. Now, what you are going to do as part of operations team, right? What will be the task you get on day-to-day basis? That is what we are going to identify those tasks and we are going to start implementing those tasks. Okay. Yeah. So this is the virtual machine that we created in the last session example. So for this virtual machine, what you need to do is on day-to-day basis, you need to monitor the health of your virtual machine. Okay, health of VMs. When is health of VMs? Whether the VMs are running or not. Okay, and if they are in a stop status or stop deallocated status, we have to monitor them. And what is the resource health of the VM? Okay, is it the VM is the health status is available, or is it the status is degraded? This is what we are going to validate. Okay, and so the VM is created assuming it has all the required components, let's say backup example, right? So let's say backup is configured and whether backup is working fine or not. Okay, you need to go ahead and check the backup jobs to see whether backup jobs are working fine or not. And if you have a replication enabled for the region level outages, whether replication ASR replication is working fine or not, you are going to validate. So this is like, daily checklist. You're going to start monitoring this. Okay. And obviously, you have monitoring, but monitoring, you need to check whether CPU is going high or memory or, disk utilization. Okay, these things, whether they're going high or not, you can check it out. And so this is like at a high level. It's an optional as well. So monitoring, you may not need to check everything on daily basis. Backup jobs, you don't need to check each and every VM manually. Replication, you don't need to check each and every VM manually. So this can be automated as well. Okay, if there is no automation or if there is no way to track them, then the method what we follow is go to each and every VM and start monitoring them. Okay, so now if we don't have the if we don't want to do the manual validations, what you can do is you can enable the auto ticketing. Okay, auto ticketing. So when I say auto ticketing, so example, whenever the backup job is failed, okay, there will be a ticket created. When there is replication is critical, then there will be a ticket created. And when CPU is high and disk utilization is going beyond the threshold, memory utilization going beyond the threshold, there will be a ticket created. Even in, with respect to the resource health, the health is getting degraded, then you'll get a ticket created. So which means you will stop monitoring the VMs. Instead of that, you will be start monitoring your ticketing tool. Okay, you will start monitoring your ticketing tool. So as part of your day-to-day jobs, you will, once you log into your system, you check your emails, then you start opening your ticketing tool. As soon as you open the ticketing tool, maybe you will have a team and you will have a team queue, and your queue will have certain tickets assigned. Probably, let's say if you have around 3,000 virtual machines, you're managing it. So a couple of virtual machine backup jobs are failed. Okay, and maybe replication is critical for few virtual machine, and let's say the memory is going beyond threshold, or CPU is going high beyond threshold. You get these kind of tickets into your ticketing tool, right? And sometimes you say, okay, resource health is degraded. Okay, then you degraded because of an issue at Microsoft, right? These kind of issues. And let's say that these are like issues, right? Day to day, your system has to be healthy, okay? And that is not healthy and you're getting a ticket. This is kind of related to the health of your environment, right? Let's say backup job is not working since, let's say, a couple of days, let's say 4 or 5 days. and you miss to monitor them. All of a sudden, your application team perform changes on the server, and the server is not coming online, and they request for the backup. They say, okay, can you please restore from the last 24 hours backup? And you go to the virtual machine, you check the latest backup, it has failed, right? So that's the reason, as part of day-to-day operations, it's important for you to start monitoring these backup jobs. Okay, these things are your day-to-day operation, day-to-day roles and responsibilities. Okay, the backup jobs are are not working, replication is critical. So all these things you have to monitor it. Okay, these are, like, as I said, your system is healthy, okay, when you are not getting any ticket from these scenarios, right? You're not getting any ticket for the backup failures, which means your VM backup is healthy. And if you're not getting any replication failures or replication critical issues, then your VM is healthy. If you're not getting any issues with respect to CPU disk memory, so your VM is healthy, right? And with respect to the resource health degraded issues, if you're not getting anything, your VM is up and running and there's no problem at all, right? So this is health monitoring, right? And your VM health status and other requests. Okay, let's say we call them as service request. Okay, in the service request, what kind of request you get it? Okay, VM resize request. Okay, and then you will get a disk resize request and modify energy rules. Okay, and these are like service request. Okay, and modify the energy rules. Then these are the common ones. Okay, there are many other things, but these are like very common issues that you get it, common requests that you get it. So they will say, okay, take manual backup for the virtual machine. Okay, let's say take snapshot of the VM. These kind of requests you get it. Okay, and when you get a request, okay, when you get a request, the request will have the information about the virtual machine that you want to perform certain actions. Okay, these kind of operations you get it on a day-to-day basis. So this is called service request. So it may be on day-to-day basis, maybe VM resize, there will be requests, 2 days, one request, maybe it's all depends on how big your environment and how frequently your environment is. You're going to make changes into your environment, right? So you have application team, you have multiple applications, they keep on changing some applications configuration. So they want to have a backup before they perform any changes, right? They want to take some snapshot before they perform any changes. So those kind of scenarios, this is called service request. And definitely, as part of this health monitoring, right? So there will be some incidents as well, you will see. Okay, what kind of incident you get is, okay, application is not accessible. All right, and let's say the VM is very slow. All right, let's say the application is very slow. Okay, and there could be issues like, unable to RDP, unable to SSH for the server. These kind of issues you get as incidents. So when you start looking at app is not accessible, right? So there could be various reasons why application is not accessible. The reason could be the VM is not in a healthy status. Why VM is not in a healthy status? Could be the VM underlying hardware is down. That's why VM is not healthy. Probably, somebody powered off the virtual machine. That's the reason the VM is not accessible. The application is not accessible, right? And maybe, the CPU or memory or disk is very high on the server. That's why application is not accessible. There could be an issue with the network security groups, the NSG rules that are blocking the application access. There could be issues at different layers. Okay, different, when you get this ticket, you will start analyzing it. Whatever I just mentioned, okay, What is the error message that user is getting? Is he just not able to access the application? Is he getting an error? Okay, first let me go ahead and check the VM status. Okay, first let me ask what is the VM is trying to access, maybe what is the application is trying to access, where is that application is hosted, and is that VM is running? And if it is running, what is the current status of the VM? Is it good from the platform side, Azure side? Is it the CPU, memory, network, everything is properly configured? Are there any rules blocking the problem? In case if there is nothing falls into this category, then you will have to get into the call with customer or an application team and try to understand from where they're trying to access, are they able to access the application when they try to configure in the locally in the server? There could be various other steps that you can perform it. Okay, this is like a kind of incident that you get it, and you may not be able to provide a solution, but you can get helping hands as well with your seniors or peers. So that's about the application accessible issues, and VM is very slow. So most of the times, when somebody say VM is very slow, you might start thinking like, um, why they are saying it's very slow. What made them think that, realize that VM is slow, right? Like when are they trying to take RDP and it is slow, or they're trying to access the application, it is slow. When they're slow, what does it mean? It's like when they're trying to open an application, it's taking longer time. Some behavioral thing we have to understand. Is it the only user, the specific user experiencing the problem? There are other users experiencing the problem. We will like try to understand the problem. Since it is Azure VM, right? So obviously you have more control on certain areas. So without contacting customer, when you get this ticket, you can go and check the CPU, disk, memory utilization from the Azure end. So that you get some clarity before you ask any questions to the customer. Probably you might also ask, okay, when are you getting this problem? Is it on a specific day or a specific time frame, or is it happening every day? It's happening for all the users or only one users? You need to understand if it is, let's say, a specific day or maybe specific time frame every day, then we need to understand what's happening during the time. And we might have to install certain tools inside the server, and we'll try to capture, what's happening during this time. So we'll try to implement as many as possible, which I'm explaining you, but you need to understand why we have to create a VM. And once a VM, while creating the VM, what are the best practices we have to follow? And once a VM is created, okay, and how do we manage it? What kind of issues we are going to get? What kind of tasks you are going to get in real time? And you should be able to at least 50% ready to handle them. You don't need to be master in fixing the performance issues. You don't need to be master in performing the network related issues, but you need to know how to get started, right? Based on the problem, you need to say, okay, if there is somebody saying not able to connect, then have to check step 1, step 2, step 3. Few things I have to validate. Let's say VM health status, network security groups, all those things which I have just explained you, right? That is what the expectations. Okay. So based on this, right? If you want to start troubleshooting the backup jobs, you need to first know how to configure backup, and what kind of backup, what are the features of the backup, okay? And when do you get a backup request? When do you perform the restore? And how the backup works, and when backup fails, how we can troubleshoot, what are the logs you have to refer. Same thing with the ASR replication. You need to know what is the importance of ASR, how do you configure the ASR in case if the replication is critical, what do you troubleshoot, and what is the process you follow for failover, reprotect, and failback operations. Similarly for the monitoring, so we have been talking about CPU, disk, memory, right? How do you monitor, how do you configure monitoring for your virtual machine with Azure native services? And once you configure the monitoring, how do you monitor them? How do you get some alerts? Maybe how do you create some dashboards? You need to understand them. Okay. Then I think resource health degrade issue that we discussed in the past, We know planned maintenance, unexpected downtime, but still we also discussed about the alerts as well, right? So you need to know when there is some resource health degrade issue occurs, what is the process you're going to follow to mitigate such problems, or, to communicate with the external stakeholders, or, internal stakeholders. Okay. Then if you want to know, if you want to handle the energy related request, first of all, you should know what is the network security group, what are the options you have, and moreover, you need to understand your infrastructure very well. Okay, what kind of policies you follow? Let's say, do you assign the energy rules on a subnet level, or do you also have a policy where you can assign this energy rules to a network interface card? Or what kind of ports you can allow over the internet, what kind of ports you cannot allow? Are you going to allow the internet communication or not? So those kind of things, you should know when you're working. You should know your policies, procedures, and before you start working on the energy tickets. As a learner, you learn how to add a port, how to remove the port, how to create a rules. You might know what is the priority number in the energy rules. Okay, when you go to the real time, when you get a ticket, if they say, okay, allow 33894 port in the energy rule, and you have access to the Azure portal, you have a privileged access, you are going to NSG and add the rule, right? You're not supposed to do that way. First of all, you have to know what is the process the company is going to follow. Okay, if you need to allow the rule or deny the rule, do you need to create any change ticket? Do you need to create any, do you need to get any approvals? And are we good to allow this rule or not, as per the security best practices in that organization, right? Though you know technically how to do it, you need to know what is the process that organization is going to follow, right? Before you start handling this energy request, you need to know the procedures, right? And you need to know this service very well, this feature very well. Similarly with the disk resize, VM resize activities. So before you perform this disk resize, VM resize, it's very straightforward, which I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. How to do a VM resize, how to do a disk resize. But what is the process you are following in your organization, where you're working, right? Do you need to create a change? Do you need to get any approval? Or you can just go and do it? Or, before you perform the resize, do you need to review the reason why we have to, increase, right? So the reason could be, let's say, okay, the CPU is going high and memory utilization is going high. So the application team is requesting for the VM resize. Okay, that could be the reason, right? So we need to validate the data. Are you going to validate the data, or just you got a request, or you just go ahead and increase the VM size or increase the disk size, right? So those things you should know. And you should also know what is the process, what is the best practice, to increase the disk size, I don't know, increase the VM size, I don't know, what is the best practice to create a rule or existing a rule in NSGs, right? So those kind of things you need to understand. With respect to backup as well, snapshot as well, any operation that you are going to learn here, that you are going to implement in the production, you need to know the process. Though you are good in technical, you learn from here, you practiced, or maybe you practice from somewhere else, you need to know the procedure, okay? So we will talk about each and every operation, and I'm gonna give you the detailed guidance on what is the process in general process any organization, most of the organization follows. Okay, you can just say that that's going to be your procedure, and you can learn the procedure that new organization that they are going to follow. Okay, so let's go to the virtual machine on Azure portal, and let me click on the virtual machine that we created in the last session. This is the virtual machine that we created. And if you look at this virtual machine, you see various options here: start, restart, stop, capture, delete options. And you can see the essential page where you can see the current state of your virtual machine and basic properties of your virtual machine. So I'm going to start this virtual machine. I stopped this virtual machine because I want to save the cost for the compute. So you know what does compute means. We had a discussion in the last session. What does compute means, right? So compute means the CPU and memory. which is allocated by the physical server in the backend, right? So when you stop the virtual machine from Azure portal, the VM will go into stopped deallocated status, which means the CPU memory is deallocated from your virtual machine. It's going to be just a virtual container. When you power it on again, the VM will get a new resource allocated. So the VM might move to another node in the physical data center, and that server will give the CPU and memory for your virtual machine. So I'm going to start the virtual machine now. So the status, it says it was stopped deallocated. Now it's saying updating. It will say running. Okay. And sometimes it says seeking as well. The status seeking means like the VM in the backend is not healthy. So you have to follow certain steps to fix that status problem. Okay. Now the virtual machine started very soon. I think less than few seconds. It's like 2-3 seconds it started. And it's running now. Okay. Let me do a refresh here. Though it is running, there are still few components that are not up, so that you can see here, the agent status not ready and all these options. Okay, so these are the properties of your virtual machine. You know what is being configured. You see availability set, availability zone is not there. Fault domain is 0 for this virtual machine, and all other information you can see from here. If you go to monitoring, you want to see what is the CPU utilization, what is the VM uptime, and disk bytes. And memory also you can see if you go to the show more metrics, right? Available memory in bytes. So you'll be able to see them. Um, but if you want to get some more, we have to install insights, and we have to install the monitoring agent if needed to get more insights. So we'll talk about them in upcoming sessions. And as I said, what are the capabilities of this VM? You can see here with this VM, you can configure Azure policies to perform certain actions, restrict some actions, restrict some operations on the Azure virtual machine. Let's say you don't want to allow the public IP for this virtual machine. Just in case if somebody by mistake enable public IP, it's gonna be a problem, right? So any host on the internet might, connect to this virtual machine, and the server might be compromised. So you want to control such human errors, right? So you can enable Azure policy by creating a new policy saying, okay, do not allow any public IP to be assigned to any virtual machine. So one of the example I'm giving, right? So with the Azure policies, you have such capabilities, okay? And you have Microsoft Defender for the cloud. It can provide any vulnerabilities information to which are exist in the virtual machine, like into the console, and you can take some action to mitigate those vulnerabilities. So when I say vulnerabilities, probably example if I give, right, your virtual machine do not have the TLS version set. Let's say currently Microsoft support recommend to go for TLS 1.2 at least. Now if your virtual machine is still on 1.0, so then it's not a compliance with the security standards. Probably there are some latest security patches missing, some critical patches are missing in your virtual machine. Such kind of vulnerabilities, they are called vulnerabilities, right? So you have to install the latest patches to fix those vulnerabilities. So Microsoft Defender for the cloud will give you that information. And we said about backup and disaster recovery, and this for the patching. This is the new feature they introduced. You can manage the virtual machine, related Windows admin related activities from the admin center. That is what they've given. I'm not explored. We can explore together on this. So auto shutdown, it's one of the feature that you can explore. Let's say this VM is not critical after the business hours, and you want to shut down the machine after the business hours, then you can go for the auto shutdown option. Likewise, this only not only one virtual machine, there are multiple virtual machine. You have it, and you want to enable auto shutdown for them, so that you can save some compute cost during the non-business hours. And the disadvantage with this feature is, it will not auto start. It's only giving the auto shutdown option. For the auto start, you have to again come and do the start operation manually, or you can build a script but this is not going to auto start automatically. So we can do some other methods. We can create Azure automation account, and there we can create a run book, and we can create some schedules which will actually stop the machine in the non-business hours and start the machine in the before the business hours. Okay. And insight basically, refers to the monitoring solution in the Azure VM. So if you want to monitor the CPU utilization, memory utilization, disk utilization, or in fact, network in and network out, bandwidth related information, you can see from the insights. So with the insights, you can get some detailed information. You can create some dashboards to understand your performance metrics and all. So this is going to be really useful. This is the Azure native service. You don't need to introduce a new monitoring solution in the cloud environment like Zabbix or Splunk or any other monitoring solutions. This gives you the almost all the capabilities to monitor your server. Okay, so that's about the insights. And if somebody asks you what do you do on Azure VM, if you just explain these capabilities, okay, so I take care of configuring backup for the virtual machine. I take care of configuring the disaster recovery using Azure Site Recovery Solution. I ensure that my virtual machines are, updated with the up to date with the security patches, critical patches using the update solution that Microsoft is offering. I also ensure that the VM's performance is not going beyond certain threshold. Let's say memory is not going beyond 90%. CP going not beyond 90%. So kind of things that you can explain, if somebody asks you what you do on Azure virtual machine, right? So these are the couple of capabilities and the recommendations. Basically, this is coming from the Azure Advisor. It's one of the feature that Microsoft is providing. It will tell you how you can reduce the cost for your virtual machine. That's one of the aspect. And the other aspects like, operational excellence and reliability. And so basically what this says, you configure DR for your virtual machine, so that in case if the regional outages happen, you can move the VM to another location so that, your application is not impacted. That's such kind of advisories it's going to provide along with the cost benefits, right? In case if your virtual machine is not heavily utilized, let's say it tries to check, I think for last 7 days, if I'm not wrong, for the last 7 days it will try to check for the CPU utilization, and it will tell you, okay, this server is not fully utilized, so you can go ahead and downgrade the virtual machine so that you can save some compute cost. Such kind of advisories benefits it advisory solutions it's going to provide. And whenever you want to do the uh, you know cost optimization for Azure infrastructure or cloud infrastructure, this is the first service that we will start using it. It's not only on the VM, all Azure services, it's going to provide the advisories. So we'll start with it and we'll try to explore further from there. Okay. So, and if I go to the tutorial section, so this is going to give some self-learning documentation, how to manage virtual machines connectivity with the Azure portal, how to troubleshoot common virtual machine issues, and make the most out of Azure Advisor. This is what I was talking about it, right? So what Azure Advisor provides, what are its capabilities? It's going to provide you this information from here. And this is going to be one of the best one that you can start you referring it for the troubleshooting issues. This is one of them, and you can also I will show you while creating the support ticket, you have an option where you can get like list of issues that you get on the virtual machine and what are the steps you can perform to fix those problems. I will try to show you when I come to this stage, support plus troubleshooting of your virtual machine. I will try to explain you what steps, what kind of issues you face in day to day and how you can troubleshoot those problems. You can also start referring this, there are like a couple of information that they have given, but there's more than what you see here in the support plus troubleshooting documentation. Okay, so that's about the virtual machine capabilities, recommendations and monitoring side and basic properties of your virtual machine. Okay, so we'll start with the activity logs next, right? So what does this activity log means? So what kind of information it's going to give you? So before we start learning this, right? Before you performing, VM resize, disk resize, all those things, this is what you're going to do. But there are other things that you also see, and maybe not on a day-to-day basis, occasionally, and that might be a very critical activity as well. So that's why it's important to learn each and every property of your virtual machine, how it function, and how we are going to use it. And then later we'll try to go for each and every task, right? And we'll try to implement them. Okay, so activity logs, basically whatever the operations you're performing on this virtual machine, those activities will be shown here. Okay, and if you look at this, start virtual machine is the operation name, and few minutes ago I have started the virtual machine. That is what you're seeing. 9 minutes ago, this user started the virtual machine and it was successful. Okay, and if I expand this, it will also have some more information when it is started and when it is completed. Okay, and if you expand this timestamp, you will see some more information. What is the time zone and what time it is started and what time it is completed. So let's say 10 p.m. 28, I think it's 10 p.m. 28 minutes, 10:28 and 25 seconds. Okay, and by 42 seconds, the virtual machine is started. So this is something like, you can calculate how many seconds it took to complete the virtual machine start operation. Okay, the another thing is that, change history. What was before earlier state and what is the new state. Okay, so before the VM was in a power off status, then the virtual machine has been powered on. You can see here. So on 28th June, 10:28 p.m. in EST, the VM was in a power off status, deallocated status. Okay, then later it has been powered it on. Okay, and this entire operations you can see, and this change history will be available only for 14 days of time period. After 14 days of time period, you cannot see this change history. Okay, and that's a drawback here. Okay, but these activities can be visible for the last 90 days. Okay, so it can store up to last 90 days. After 90 days, the logs will not be available. In case if you wanted to save such kind of logs for the future reference or future use, then you can stream these logs to Log Analytics Workspace. So I will show you, either you can start streaming this from here, or you can go to the Azure portal and search for the Azure Monitor, or maybe you can search for the activity log. If you go to activity logs and you see export activity log option and click on add diagnostics and provide the name of your setting. Let's say activity logs. Sorry, activity logs to Log Analytics Workspace. Okay, and you can see what kind of categories: administrative categories, security categories, service health categories, policy related, resource health related. So administrative is nothing but, you perform the restart, stop operation, delete operation. They are kind of administrative activities. And security activities, service health, alert. If when you change the policy, if there are anything from the Azure advisor, it assesses your resource and providing the recommendation. Maybe you have a policy assignments or audits. Then it such kind of activities you can see. Resource health, like your VM status, it was degraded because of issue at Microsoft. Right, Microsoft physical server or network host related issues, those kind of things you can see from the resource health. So I would suggest to go for the administrative and service health if possible, and resource health. Okay, administrative also is not required all the time, but if you want, right, you can stream them to Log Analytics Workspace. So there's only one Log Analytics Workspace which I've created in the subscription. In case if you have more than one, it will show up in the dropdown. You can choose the right one. And these logs also can be sent to storage account for the long-term retention. And you can also stream them to Event Hub. From the Event Hub, you can stream them to any one of the ITSM solution or ITSM tool like Splunk or ServiceNow. If you have any partner solution, you can send it to them here. So this is how you can export these logs and store it for a longer duration. It's about to audit, right? If somebody performs certain activities and you have to perform the root cause analysis, that is a situation this log is going to help us, right? To perform certain audit operations. Okay, so this is about the activity logs and going to the access control and IAM, identity and access management. So this is a place where you come here and see who have access. Okay, if you go to the role assignment, you'll be able to see who all are the users having access, who all are the groups having access here. Okay, otherwise, if you want to add any role here, go ahead and add a role and select the permissions, be it a contributor, whatever it is, select the users and provide them the access. If you want to provide access to any users, you can provide this way. Okay, but generally, right, we don't provide access to the resource directly. It could be at a resource group level or subscription level or on a management group level, and that too we don't provide access directly to any users. We provide access to the group, and the users part of the group will have permissions automatically applied. Okay, and the tags plays a very important role in the enterprise cloud environment. So in the next session, we'll have a detailed discussion because we don't have much time for today. So in the next session, I'm going to start with this topic. Okay, so going to diagnose and solve problems. So this is the one of the best feature, I would say. If you wanted to understand the day-to-day issues and how to troubleshoot those problems, you can get started from here. So if you want to project yourself as an experienced person and you know how VM works and all those things, but you don't know what kind of issues that you face in the real time, you can just come here. You can see common problems and troubleshooting tools. Well, let's go with the common problems. Okay, so whatever the status you're seeing, this is the resource health. I started the virtual machine. That's why it is showing this health status. But if you scroll down, you see cannot connect to the VM and VM performance issues. VM restarted or stopped unexpectedly. Okay, if I say this cannot connect to the VM, it could be issue with the NSGs or virtual machine is not in the running status, virtual machine is experiencing performance issues, such kind of thing. In case if the virtual machine is experiencing the performance issues, what kind of issues you face it and how do you troubleshoot them? VM restarted or stopped unexpectedly. This is 100% because of an issue at Microsoft, and the resource degradation issues, host failure issues, or probably I would say unplanned downtime, planned maintenance kind of categories issues will be falls under this category. Okay. And if I go to the Windows update, guest patching and OS upgrades, you are doing a monthly patching for your virtual machines using the Azure Update Manager solution, and the monthly patching is not working as expected. So maybe the patching job is failed and you want to understand, you want to troubleshoot them, you go for this option. Okay, so VM admin, let's say the guest OS is not functioning well. Maybe you're not able to RDP to the server. The credentials are not working. You want to reset them. That's another category. So this is like deployment failures. You're trying to create a virtual machine and it's taking a lot of time. Probably it took 40 minutes, 30 minutes. Probably after 45 minutes, it's giving a timeout error. So most common error what you see is the VM creation is not happen in the given allotted time. Retry the deployment or make sure that the VM image is correctly configured. Such kind of errors you see, and you will also have some steps here. You will try to follow them. Okay, this allocation success recommender. I think this is something different one. This is like provide the prediction of the chance of successful location next 7 days. Probably it is related to the Azure quota related. And there's a VM deployment guidance kind of advisory, I believe. VM is not booting, and this is the most common issue that you see, and most of the interviewers will ask you the questions on this. If you learn the steps how to fix it, that should be fair enough. All right. Allocation failures again issue at Microsoft. You don't need to do anything. You just need to retry the operation. All right. Help with the VM sizing. You can resize the VM in case if there are any issues while resizing the VM, then you can choose this category. Likewise, guys, you have many other options. Okay. planned maintenance, Azure features, migration, all those things. These kind of activities you perform, and one or the other day you might face any issue belongs to this category. Okay. If I say cannot connect to the VM, okay, you select this. So why you cannot connect to the VM? You think configuration change affected connectivity. Recently you made changes to the VM that is affecting your connectivity of your VM. Probably you have some network security group. You want to start troubleshooting from there. Let's select this one. So it will try to self-resolve the problem. Okay. In case if the issue is not helping you, then it will give you the common solution. Okay, what else you can try? Rerun the diagnostics, redeploy the VM, diagnose Windows VM connectivity issue with the boot diagnostic screenshot, resolve the RDP issues. Some documentation you see. All right, and you can also go to this documentation and you can learn known issues, from Microsoft. All right. So likewise, you can go for each and every category and try to understand. Let's say performance issues. Disk throughput or IOPS are lower than expected. Okay. So it's gonna perform some assessment and it is gonna give you some information. Okay. So basically we install the perf insights, performance insight, and that will give us some information with respect to the disk, network, or CPU or memory. In case if there is any problem with any one of the category, you'll be able to see them. Okay. So VM performance, what are the metrics? It is giving you all the metrics. It's fetching all the metrics automatically, right? So with this, you can perform some analysis. In case if somebody say, okay, what do you do when there's a performance issue comes? You can always say that, we go to the performance issues category and we select each category, and it will also give me the current utilization, for a specific duration. You can start explaining this, and these are the couple of things that you can remember it. Okay. So this is about the diagnose and solve problems and known issues at Azure VM side. If you go for each scenario will have a different solutions, different errors. So as in when we go for each scenario, we'll try to explore more here. Let's say in the next session, if I talk about the tags, and after the tags, if I talk about networking, so I will explain you what are the issues we get in the networking side. How do we start fixing it? How do we validate the problem? How do we isolate the problems? Okay, so that's all for today from my side. And in the next session, we'll talk about tags and importance of the tags. We'll try to run through some demos. Then we'll go for the networking. Once the networking is completed, I'm going to talk about the disk operations, tomorrow networking operation, then disk operation, then VM resize operations. Then we'll talk about the little bit more about the proximity placement group, accelerator networking, and the Microsoft Defender for the cloud. Then we'll also discuss about the Azure operations, VM operations, connectivity options through Bastion host, spine to site VPN, site to site VPN, and express route. Then once it is completed, now we'll talk about the backup solution, DR solution, patching solution, and kind of a little bit of automation here, and a couple of some troubleshooting steps. What you see here, be it a monitoring, be it a connectivity, how we connect and try to fix it. So with this VM concept will be completed, right? So we'll try to go as deeper as much possible, and we'll try to discuss as many use cases as possible. Okay, so if you have any question, feel free to ask. Don't hesitate. All right. Okay.